Yeah, it's a good movie. Came out like when I was, you're all like 12, 13. So I hope I'm going to get it right. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I went back and refreshed a little bit. So near the beginning of the movie, if you have seen it before, you know, Mr. Incredible used to be a superhero. Now he's got a regular job, works at that tiny cubicle, you know. And they don't really want people to know the superpowers that their family has. So they kind of stay low-key. They don't let Dash compete in track because he would, you know, crush everybody, you know, all that stuff. And Mr. Incredible comes in kind of late one night, and he's like tiptoeing, and he sees a piece of chocolate cake, and so he picks it up and eats it. You know, he's tiptoeing, and he gets through the living room, and then Miss Incredible, Elastigirl, flips on the light, wheels her chair around, and he's been caught, right? And so she walks up, and she's looking around, and she picks up this little tiny piece off his shirt. She goes, "Have you been out fighting again?" It was a piece of rubble, okay, like from a building collapsing. And so she, just tiny little piece, and he's been caught again, right? He was supposed to be home. He missed something for his kids that night, and she starts, you know, getting on him. You know, we can't move again. We don't want people to find out who we really are. And she is getting on him, and she says, "You know, you missed Dash's graduation." And he goes, "It's not a graduation. He's going from 4th grade to 5th grade." But she goes, "It's a ceremony." He goes, "But it's pointless." And she says, "This is not about you, Bob," right? And he keeps going back and forth. And she says, "You know, quit going out and fighting crime. Quit, you know, you were listening to the police scanner again. You were going out and getting there before the police got there." And he starts trying to say, "But I want to do this." And she says again, "It's not about you." She says, "It's about," and I'll take it off because she keeps growing and yelling at him, right? "It's not about you." She says, "It's about your family. It's about your kids." Well, let me tell you something, and this is to everybody. This life is not about you. And unfortunately, we live in a society that has made us believe that it is all about me. And you know one thing that has made this even worse is called social media. Now, as I begin this lesson, do I have social media accounts? Yes, I do. Okay? So I am not saying that we need to go home and delete every social media account that we have. But I am saying that we need to realize that social media has made it all about me. And it has helped create the selfish society that we all live in. There are literal, I put them in quotes because I don't really think they're jobs, but there are literal jobs that people claim to have that is literally about posting and engagements and views, and they call it influencers. And I think this is the dumbest thing ever. And if you were one of my students and say you want to be an influencer when you grow up, I say you're being dumb, get a degree. Okay? But there are jobs, and people make a lot more money than I make being a social media influencer. People usually think about it. Why do people put things on social media? It's not for others, is it? It's for themselves. It's for attention, right? It's for people to see me and see what I'm doing. And yeah, they might convince themselves, yeah, I'm going to put this out there for other people, but really it's about themselves. We determine our success in many ways today by how many likes and comments and views and engagements we get. And these social media sites are good about letting us know how many of these things we have. Notice how when we talk about social media, all the attention is about me. And this lesson today is about living selflessly. If we want to live with joy, if we want to overcome the mental health crisis that we all face, living selflessly might be the most important part of it. And I don't think it's a coincidence that as mental health in our country has gone like this, social media use has gone like this. I found 3 statistics that I think should make us all kind of sit back and realize how much of a problem this is. According to the National Center for Health Statistics, the suicide rate for Americans between the ages of 10 to 24 rose 57% from 2007 to 2018. Between the years of 2000 and 2007, that rate didn't change. You know what started to really take off at about 2007 and got more popular ever since? Social media. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's a reason why the suicide rate for young people has gone up. A 2019 study of children between ages 12 and 15 found that children who use social media between 35 minutes and 3 hours a day showed a significantly increased risk for having a mental health illness as a teenager. And in 2018, a university split college students up into two groups. One group had to use social media 30 minutes or less every day. Another group could be on social media as much as they wanted. And at the end of that study, the group of students that used social media as much as they wanted to all said, I felt more anxious, I felt more depressed, and I felt more discouraged than their counterparts in the group that only used it 30 minutes a day. No, it's not the only reason that we're facing a mental health crisis today, but social media is not helping. And I think a big reason why is because social media is all about myself and what I'm doing, and it doesn't, we talked about last night, it doesn't help solve the problem. It just tries to capitalize on the problem that we face. And so, in order to start living with joy, in order to start regaining control of the mental health crisis that we're all facing today, I think it's very important that we live a selfless life. And I'm going to talk about living selflessly. I'm going to mention a lot about social media because, again, I think with young people, and even people my age, it's becoming a problem as well. Social media is at the core of the reason why we're selfish. It's the core of the reason why there's so many mental issues today. And so our first point today is, if you're not in Philippians chapter 2, then go ahead and get there. Living selflessly means living like Jesus. Everything in Christianity should start with Jesus. The first 6 letters of the word Christian spell Christ, because everything begins and it all ends with Jesus. And so the first 11 verses talk about how Jesus had the same attitude that we all should be striving to have. Philippians 2, go ahead and read with me. Therefore, if there is any encouragement in Christ, if there is any consolation of love, if there is any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and compassion, make my joy complete by being of the same mind, maintaining the same love, united in spirit, intent on one purpose. Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind regard one another as more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others. Have this attitude in yourselves, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, although he existed in the form of God, did not regard equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself, taking the form of a bondservant, and being made in the likeness of men. Being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. For this reason also God highly exalted him, and bestowed on him the name which is above every name, so that the name of Jesus every knee will bow, of those who are in heaven and on earth and under earth, and that every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. He says here, the ultimate selfless attitude is found in Jesus. Verse 7, he was selfless because he just came to this earth. He left perfection in heaven and came and lived with men who hated him. That's a selfless act. He was selfless by enduring the pains that the cross brought upon him. He was selfless in his humility and his submission to God, because he said that I'm going to follow God's plan no matter what the cost is. And I want to point this out because we're going to come back and hit on this. Did we as humans do anything to earn what Christ did for us? No. We did not earn his selfless attitude. We did not earn the acts that Christ did for us. Coming to earth, being humble, being a servant, making sure that he followed God's plan. He did it because it was the right thing to do. He did it out of love. Remember that. Love, compassion, and humility are all traits that are necessary in order to show the same selfless attitude that Jesus himself showed as well. Just a few examples of that. We're not going to turn to them, so just listen. In Matthew 20 and verse 28, Jesus says that he did not come to be served, but to serve. Jesus didn't come to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life a ransom for many. John 13, just hours before Judas was about to betray him, you know what Jesus was doing? He was washing the feet of his apostles. And you know somebody's feet he washed in that act? Somebody said it. Judas's. The man that he knew was about ready to give him up, he washed Judas's feet, showing how we need to be servants, how nothing we can do to serve others is beneath us. We're always going to be humble. And then Christ said in Luke chapter 19, this is after he went to Zacchaeus' house, and people were giving him a hard time. He said, the Son of Man came not to be glorified, not to have a parade thrown for him. The Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. Jesus was humble and compassionate and loving because he came for us. He came to this earth for mankind. And so what are some things to remember in order to live selflessly like Jesus? Number one, go back to the Incredibles. It's not about you. It wasn't about Jesus with Jesus. It was about God and it was about us. It's not about me. Be selfless so that we can glorify God. Next thing, we have to empty ourselves just like Christ did. It says there in verse 7, Christ emptied himself. It doesn't mean that he emptied who he was. He emptied himself of all selfishness and all pride. Jesus didn't have selfishness and pride, but it just basically is saying Jesus completely humbled himself. That's what he did, and that's what we need to do as well. Be a servant. Look for ways to help other people. Jesus looked for ways at all times to help others. Even if it's inconvenient, have the same mindset that Jesus had, is that you're not on this earth to be served, but to serve others. Put others before yourself. And in order to do that, we have to have humility, and we also have to have compassion. We have to have compassion for others because that's going to move us to then serve them, to then do things that will help whatever they need. Also, it says there in verse 5, have this attitude in yourselves. Okay, teenagers, can you change your attitude? Do your parents ever tell you to fix your attitude? Yeah, now we're getting head shakes, yeah. Attitudes can be changed. And that means when we're being selfish and proud and all the focus is on ourselves, change. Change the attitude so that your attitude is more like Christ. Here, you remember I said we did nothing to earn what Christ did for us? This is a big one. I really want to point this out. People don't earn our selflessness. We don't need to wait. We can't wait around for somebody to earn us being selfless and us serving them. We need to do the right thing regardless of what's going to happen after, regardless of if they deserve it or not. Sometimes do we do things because we want the thank you? Or let's say this, you hold the door open for somebody and they don't say thank you. Is it kind of annoying sometimes when that happens? I'll tell on myself, you know what I do whenever I hold the door for somebody and they don't say thank you? After they walk past, I go, you're welcome, and then leave, okay? That's not why we do it. And who cares if they don't say thank you? Who cares if they don't repay you? We don't do it for the thank you. We don't do it for the repayment. You know who didn't do stuff for the thank yous? Who are we talking about right now? Jesus. There's a lot of people, us included, that don't always say thank you to Christ for what he did. We don't do things because people earn it. We do things for others because it's the right thing to do. It's the right attitude to have. Living selflessly is sometimes going to be dirty, sometimes going to be inconvenient, and it's sometimes not going to be very much fun. Do you think it was a lot of fun for Jesus to wash other men's feet? No. Okay? I hate feet. I think they're gross. My wife hardly ever sees me without socks on because I do not like feet. I think they're disgusting. Okay? So, in order for me to wash somebody's feet, I have to really love them. Or it's my kids' feet, and I do it because I know they can't do it. That's about the only reason I would do it. And think about, they wore sandals, and they had dirt roads, and they probably didn't wash their feet like we do every day or more than one time a day. It was gross. The Son of God, the perfect Son of God, stooped down to wash their feet. Do you think it was always convenient for Jesus to heal people when maybe he wanted to go off and do something else? But Jesus did it. Because remember, he said, I didn't come to this earth to be served, but to serve others. So, some examples of things that are selfless, but are inconvenient or dirty or not a whole lot of fun. I'm not advocating for us to set up buckets and start washing each other's feet, because you're not going to find me there doing that. But I am saying maybe, we talked about earlier, you all are young, you're energetic. If somebody needs their lawn mowed, take time out of your weekend and go do it. Somebody, you hear it announced that, hey, this family's moving houses and they need help. You are not too young to be there and help out. It's inconvenient. I don't like helping people move, okay? But it's something that we need to do because it's a selfless act. Sometimes it's going to be inconvenient and dirty and not a whole lot of fun. But if we want to live like Jesus lived and have this attitude that Jesus had, we need to do those things that help others. So I want us to all ask ourselves a serious question. Go back to the beginning of our lesson. Can I have the attitude that Jesus had and be consumed with social media? Can I have the attitude that Jesus had and fill up my free time just doing things on social media? Or do I need to maybe limit my time, limit my post, limit my mindset of me and social media? Is that helping me live like Jesus, or is that keeping me from living like Jesus? Again, I am not saying to give it up. We might need to reassess how much time and how much we devote ourselves to those things on social media. We talked last night, Jesus went through some excruciating mental pain. He had to face the challenges that Satan threw his way, and yet he never wavered. And why was that? Because he lived a selfless life. He lived a life for others. He lived a life for us. And that's what allowed him to live with joy. That's what allowed him to get through the mental health challenges that he faced. Because his mindset was not on himself, it was on God, and it was on others. And so, first of all, living selflessly means living like Jesus. Second, living selflessly means living modestly. So, first of all, here we go again, another talk about modesty for the young people, okay? It's not going to be what you think, okay? Because what is modesty? You know what modesty is? It's living your life in a way that doesn't draw attention to yourself. So living modestly does not just have to do with what we wear, believe it or not. Living modestly has a lot more to do with living selflessly than what it does with our clothing. Living selflessly means living modestly. And so, if living modestly means that we're not drawing attention to ourselves, living immodestly means we're doing things and we're living a life that puts the attention on me. In other words, it means we're being selfish. That's what that means. So, first of all, as I get a drink, ask a question, how can we live immodestly? How can we live immodestly? I think, again, we tend to think about immodesty as just clothing. But I want to first start off with, we can be immodest by what we follow and what we post and how we act on social media. I want to ask you this question. Why do you have a Snapchat? Why do you have a TikTok? Why do you have an Instagram account? I don't think you all really do much on Facebook or Twitter anymore, but those are the three big ones. Why do we have that? Why do you have this app or that app on your phone? Is it because you want it? Is it because you're going to put stuff on there so that others can see the life you live? Is it because you want attention on yourself? What type of pictures or videos are you posting or sending to others? Is the attention on yourself? Is that why you're doing these things? Or are you able to be selfless even on these social media apps? We can live immodestly a lot on social media. Yes, the way we dress, that can be immodest as well. Too revealing, too tight, but also, you know what? Too loose, too flashy, too about me. Anything I put on, if I put it on because I want people to look at me, that's immodest. And so I could be dressed from my shoulders down to my ankles and I could still be immodest because when I put this outfit on this morning, I wanted everyone's attention to be on Nick. That's immodesty. The way we dress can be immodest. How we talk about ourselves can be immodest as well. You know, if we are just always negative about ourselves and we're super dramatic about how we talk about ourselves because we want people to be like, oh, it's all right, Nick. It's okay. We always want the pats on the back. That's immodesty because the attention is on me. Or if it's the opposite and we're proud and we're not humble, we're always wanting the attention to be on us by the little things that we say. Okay, look at what Nick did. That's immodesty as well. Always finding a way. Somebody's telling a story and you butt in because you've got a story just like it about yourself. Somebody's giving an example of something, you're going to butt in and you're going to give an example about something in your life. That's immodesty because guess what? The attention is on me. How we act in sports or activities. You make a big shot, you do a good job, you win a big game. What are you doing? You doing something to bring the attention on yourself? Or are you just going about your business? Who cares? I'm not going to let the attention be on me. If we want the attention on ourselves, again, that's immodesty. And so, hopefully what you've seen at this point is that immodesty is not just about clothing. In fact, I would say clothing is a very small part of immodesty. Immodesty is living a life that gives the attention to ourselves. And we know as Christians, we read in Philippians chapter 2 that can't be the case. So let's go back and read the first 4 verses of this chapter again. Therefore, if there is any encouragement in Christ, if there is any consolation of love, if there is any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and compassion, make my joy complete by being of the same mind, maintaining the same love, united in spirit, intent on one purpose. Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others. I think where immodesty comes in is the empty conceit in verse 3. Do nothing out of selfishness or empty conceit. Conceit is excessive pride in oneself. Immodesty often stems from pride. And so, living immodestly is living with that empty conceit. We're conceited, we're proud, we're immodest when what we do or post or act or say is basically saying, look at me. Look at Nick. Look at what I'm doing. That's conceit. That's pride. That's immodesty. So, Nick, how does modesty have anything to do with putting others before ourselves? Well, when we live modestly, our actions, our speech, our conduct doesn't bring attention to ourselves. And if that's the case, you know who it is bringing attention to? God and others. And that's living modestly. Modesty shows others that you think of yourselves beneath them. You put others above yourself, which is exactly what we are told to do in verses 3 and 4. Think about how Christ lived modestly. He served others. He literally got down and washed other guys' feet. That's modesty, because the attention was not on himself. He healed others. He always was willing to give the credit to God. That is modest living. And that's how we have to live, just like Christ did. And I think there's two good passages. So we're going to get out of Philippians for a second. I want you to turn back to Romans. Romans chapter 13. I think these are two good passages here in Romans 13 and 14 that kind of explain to us how we can live modestly as Christians. Romans chapter 13, starting in verse 8. Owe nothing to anyone except to love one another, for he who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. For this, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet. And if there is any other commandment, it is summed up in this saying, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is fulfillment of the law. Showing love to our neighbor, showing love to others, means putting ourselves last. That's what it takes. We put their needs and their concerns above ours. We don't just look out for our own interests, but we look out for the interests of others. We can't draw attention to ourselves if we're focused on helping others. We can't draw attention to ourselves if we're focused on helping others. Love one another. Love your neighbor as yourself, because that's going to draw the attention to others and God and not yourself. The second passage is in Romans 14. Romans chapter 14, verse 13. It says, therefore let us not judge one another anymore, but rather determine this, not to put an obstacle or stumbling block in a brother's way. So what this is basically saying is, don't do something that might cause another Christian to sin. Don't do something that might cause another Christian to sin. Think of a stumbling block, something in the way. We're all traveling down this road, and anybody played Mario Kart? The banana peels? Those are stumbling blocks, right? Somebody's in front of you playing Mario Kart, they throw the banana peel, and you're like, because you spin out, and then you got to get back on track, okay? Don't put the banana peel in another Christian's way, because that's going to cause them to spin out. It's going to cause them to sin. And it's a funny example, but sin is not a banana peel. Sin is far, far more serious. Living immodestly, putting the attention on ourselves, can make it very easy for us to put that stumbling block in someone else's way. Think about, and I think a lot of this can come on social media. What am I doing in what I'm posting? What am I wearing in the pictures and videos? What are the songs that are in the background? What are the songs that I'm singing on TikTok? What are the activities that I'm engaged in? And think about this. The people that I'm with, how are they dressed? What are they doing? What activities are they participating in? Anything that we put out there for other people to see, Christians and non-Christians, if it might cause them to sin, that's us living immodestly. That's not us putting their needs and their interests above ourselves. Okay, because any Christian that's living right doesn't want to sin. They don't want to be tripped up by a stumbling block. So on social media, but also in our lives in general, Make sure that we're living our lives modestly, putting others above ourselves so that we're not putting a chance for them to sin by our actions or our speech or our conduct or our dress. Overall, whatever we do, we need to ask ourselves, what is my end goal? How do I want people to notice me? What's the purpose of this? Is it for myself or is it for others? Living like Christ, living selflessly, it means we've got to live modestly. Not drawing attention to ourselves because we think of others as more important than us. That's how we're told to live. And so turn back to Philippians chapter 2 for our last point. Living selflessly means living as a light. Living selflessly means living as a light. We're going to go back to chapter 2, verses 14 through 18. It says, verse 14, "Do all things without grumbling or disputing, so that you will prove yourselves to be blameless and innocent, children of God above reproach in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you appear as lights in the world, holding fast the word of life, so that in the day of Christ I will have reason to glory, because I did not run in vain nor toil in vain. But even if I am being poured out as a drink offering upon the sacrifice and service of your faith, I rejoice and share my joy with you all. You too, I urge you, rejoice in the same way and share your joy with me." We are called as lights in this world. And there's other passages we can read that talks about how we are supposed to be the lights in this dark world. Our role model is Christ. It is not an athlete, not a celebrity, not a social media influencer. Don't strive to be like those people. Strive to be like Christ, like our first point that we talked about. There's a lot of dark in this world. And a lot of the darkness that's in this world comes from the negative things from celebrities and athletes and social media. Listen, these people do not live their lives with the attitude that we talked about in our first point. They are not living like Christ. I'm just going to say that because you know why? The attention they put out there is all about themselves. They are not our role model. Christ is. These people focus on themselves and not on others or Christ. Think about celebrities, athletes, influencers. Think about how much they draw attention to their bodies, to themselves. I saw a statistic recently that LeBron James, and I'm sure other athletes are in the same boat, LeBron James spends $1.5 million a year on his body. On the food he eats, on the therapy he goes through, on the training, $1.5 million a year on his body. If you ever looked at what Tom Brady, the NFL player, did, I read a little bit about his TB12, how he has a healthy body. And I was like, the average person can't afford half of this. He spent millions on himself, on his body. Influencers, it's all about themselves. How much time, money, and energy do they spend on their house? And then they post pictures of how nice it is. They post videos, give you a tour of their house and how nice it is, all the different rooms that they have. How much time, money, and energy do they spend on getting more engagements on their posts, on their videos, selling their merchandise? It's like they're bombarding us with all of that. And it's so easy to get trapped up in. It's so easy to start to be like them. Start to spend money. I'm not saying, I ran this morning before I came here. So I'm not saying don't work out. I'm not saying make sure that your body is healthy. I'm not saying all that, okay? What I am saying is that what is our focus? Is our focus on people looking at us? People seeing how fit we are, how good we look, how many likes we got, how many views we got? Is that our focus? That's the focus of people of the world. That was not the focus of Christ. So because of this, we will stand out if we live selflessly. We will stand out if we live like Christ. Because so many people today are trying to be like the celebrities and athletes and influencers whose focus is on themselves. There is nothing wrong with spending time and money and energy on our appearance. I want to look good. I don't want somebody to see me and think, ugh, okay? It's okay to want to look nice. It's okay to want to be in shape. A lot of us here are athletes. Get in the weight room, okay? Just practice your craft. That's great. It's okay to spend time on our house. I love driving home, and whenever I've cut the grass or done the landscaping, it just makes me feel happy to see that the hard work there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with spending time and money on things we enjoy. But here's the question we all need to ask ourselves. What is my focus on? And what do I want others to focus on? Do I want them to focus on my time and energy that I'm spending on myself? Or do I want them to see Christ living in me? Do I want them to see that I am a servant because I am selfless, because I am helping others? Living as a light means we are reflecting God and not ourselves. Matthew 5 and verse 16, let your light so shine before men that others may see your good works and tell you how great you are. Is that what it says? Let your light so shine before men that others may see your good works and go around and talk about how cool you are. Is that what it says? Let your light so shine before men that others may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Why do we act modestly? Why are we selfless? To glorify God. Selfishness doesn't do that. Empty conceit doesn't do that. Immodesty doesn't do that. Living like Christ glorifies God. Living as a light means we have a good attitude. Let me repeat that, teenagers. Listen, remember we talked about it last night. What do I do every day? What's my job? Teacher and coach. I spend time with teenagers. Guess who has bad attitudes half the time? Teenagers do. All right, I'm just calling it out. All right. Living as a light means having a joyful attitude. Look at verse 14 that we just read here. Do all things without grumbling, complaining is another word for that, or disputing, arguing, fighting with your parents or siblings or friends. Do all things without doing those things. You know, when we complain and we grumble, where our focus is? On ourselves. We don't complain when our focus is on others. We don't argue and dispute when our focus is on others. We only do those things when our focus is on ourselves. When we're selfish, that's when we complain and grumble and dispute. When we're focused on others and their problems and trying to help them to glorify God, we're not going to complain about our own problems because we see that others have it worse off than we do. Listen, living as a light is probably not going to make our lives easier. Being selfless is probably not going to make our lives easier. Spending less time on social media, probably not going to make our lives easier. But you know what it is going to do? It's going to pay off. Because we're going to be living like Christ. We're going to be living as lights in this world. We're going to be living like God wants us to live. So I'm going to end this point by asking a question that I'm asking myself, and I want you all to ask yourselves as well. How do I want other people to remember me? How do I want other people to remember me? As somebody who looks really good? As somebody who's in really good shape? As somebody who is just a really cool dude? Or is it somebody who serves others? Somebody who is not conceited, who is not selfish. How do I want others? Because let me tell you, you spend time around anybody, they're going to walk away with an impression of you. What's the impression that they're going to walk away with? As we wrap up, I guess I'll just leave it up here on this slide, but as we wrap up, there's one other person I want to talk about when we talk about living selflessly. And that is, you don't have to turn your Bibles or anything. That's all the way back in the book of Judges. One of the judges of the nation of Israel. It's the only woman judge. Her name was Deborah. And so Deborah had to free Israel. Israel wasn't, the nation of Israel, God's people, they weren't living right. So Deborah was chosen by God to go and help deliver Israel so that they could get back on the right track. And Deborah, she told a man named Barak, who was high commander in the army for Israel. She went and told Barak, hey Barak, go and take an army, and I want you to go and free Israel from the captivity that they're living in. They're living as slaves, go and free them. And Barak, this guy who was in charge of an army, this is what he told Deborah. He said, the only way I'm going to do this is if you go with me. If you don't go with me, Deborah, I'm not going. So, first of all, really manly right there, right? You got to go with me. I'm not going to go by myself. But Deborah went with them, and they defeated the enemy, and they freed the Israelites. And you know who got the honor? It wasn't Deborah. It was Barak. The coward who wouldn't go unless Deborah went with him. He got the honor. And we don't read anything about Deborah taking any credit for herself, even though she was very instrumental in making sure Israel was freed. In fact, in Hebrews chapter 11, that's the chapter that lists all the people of faith. Like, be like these people. They were faithful people. All the great things they did. Listen to what it says in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 32. And what more shall I say? For time will fail me if I tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, and Samuel and the prophets. Whose name was mentioned there? Barak. Whose name was not mentioned? Deborah. And it doesn't say Barak only went because Deborah went with him to help him. It says Barak was the one that delivered Israel out of faith. It's interesting. But I guarantee, you know who doesn't care that Barak's name is in there? Who? Deborah doesn't care. Because she was selfless. She understood that it's not about me. It's about God. It's about freeing the people of Israel. Be like Deborah. Even if you do something great, even if you do something great and faithful and you help a lot of people, if the attention is not given to you, if the thank yous are not given to you, it is okay. Living selflessly is not about who gets the credit. It's about putting others first. It's about glorifying God. It's about living like Jesus. And so live with joy. J-O-Y. Jesus first, yourself last, and others in between. Put Jesus first. Live like him. Put others second, and put yourself last. And if you do that, you are guaranteed to live with joy. Because just like Elastigirl told Mr. Incredible in that movie, guess what? This life is not about you. Let's make sure that we live selflessly so that we can live with joy and overcome the challenges that we face. Thank you all for listening so well today. I'll turn it over to John.